Hello. I am hoping that everybody can hear me. And so followers, if you're there, just give me a wave, but also just let me know if you can hear the... Danielle, hi. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm actually outside using a different process. So if you can say yes or no, that would be super helpful. Anyway, so welcome to this episode of Talking to Artists. As you know, I'm actually obviously not in my studio. I'm actually just outside of a McDonald's parking lot, and I'm on my way to Kingston. So Talking to Artists is really about, for me, it's just about really cool and interesting conversations that I can have with people that I really like. Hey, Laurie, can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure, because I'm not using my Yeti mic, because I'm actually in a parking lot, actually. So Talking to Artists is really about, for me, an opportunity to get to talk to some really cool artists, see their studios, which I think is always a really great thing. And also to be able to, I'll get you to join in 1 second, Laurie. And also an opportunity for collectors also to see some of the life behind an artist. So not only the creative inspiration, but also what it takes to actually do the business of art and actually take those risks and push your boundaries, sometimes in an environment that's not always comfortable for you, for example, the digital environment. So I'm really excited to do this series, and I'll be every Thursday, and we'll continue on. So basically, so I'm sitting here, Carolyn, in a parking lot at just outside the McDonald's. I'm on my way to Kingston, and part of this is, of course, is the soap opera of the life of Kate Taylor right now, and I was in hospital. My father is in hospital right now, so I'm heading to Kingston to see them. And my car was stolen, so I'm driving this honkin' huge Ford Escalade, which is actually a really great arch-stepping car. So let me bring Laurie on board here. Oops. And I've also, now you can see the parking lot. No, geez. Okay.
I'm looking at a man walk down the sidewalk.
Okay, can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you for joining me. So Laurie and I go back a long way. I guess we've done, Artist Project, Riverdale Art Walk, probably Art Walk in the Square,
Yep.
Ottawa. We were beside each other at Ottawa a few years ago.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And one of the things I've always really admired, I think you were the first person that I really knew who did a lot of, you really pushed the boundaries of kind of what you're doing, which I'd love to sort of talk about, like your theater experience and now your classes and sort of having been online for so long. But right now, I want to talk about your really cool big painting.
Oh, my really big painting. Yeah. I just thought, I have really high ceilings in my place here. They're like 13 feet high, and with the pandemic, I was supposed to be in Bahamas right now, so I'm missing my friends down there.
Oh.
And I thought I've always wanted to make some really, really large paintings. So why not take advantage of this really crappy situation and do something that I love. So I ordered 5 6x7 feet canvases, and
Wow.
I started a YouTube channel, which really makes me nervous, but it's just about, growing. You always have to keep pushing the boundaries and moving forward and doing things that are uncomfortable. And I think, when those uncomfortable little spaces happen or feelings happen is when we grow. So, always keep pushing yourself. So
Yes.
they're right behind me. I was working on that one last night. It's still like really,
Oh, it's cool.
I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but we'll see.
Can you give us a little tour of your studio? I always love to, I'm nosy. I love to see where people work,
I
what their
can.
spaces are.
I was like, oh, I'm taking you on the road. I don't know how to do that. Let's see.
Well, another new thing we're working on.
Okay, so here are my big canvases.
Wow.
So they kind of don't fit in the box, but I try and do the best I can with my floor, but about every month I do a little cleanup. This is my really messy section. But
I love that section.
my tables are great because they wheel. So wherever I need them to go, they come with me. And there's the start of the third one. And then I have my mishmash pile here. And then I have some hangings here. So as my walls, all the galleries are, wanting art for the summer. So all my walls are blank.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got technically full walls, but they're all the work's committed to galleries, which is weird too, because you kind of have a sense that you've got lots of work and then you actually don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of, and there's my TV.
Okay, so what are your few products that you would actually totally die without,
What are my products that I would die
that
without?
you love?
Um, um, I'm gonna give a plug. Golden paint. I can't go without my golden paint.
And do you have a color that you love, or a couple colors?
I don't like the name of it. I would like them to change the name of it, but my new favorite color is yellow, and it's
That sounds so creative.
yeah, it's not just yellow. I'm sure you all know what kind of yellow I'm talking about. It refers to a type of person, and so I won't say the name, but it's
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is weird. I know. I was using that the other day too. I'm like, I'm surprised they haven't kind of looked at changing that.
I know, right? It's
Yeah,
time. Like you don't need to have that name anymore. So,
yeah, like
but
everything else. And I love the fact too. I was just looking at Crayola. I guess it's come up. Someone's worked on, how there's always like flesh color, which is always white,
yeah,
pinky white color, which honestly is a weird color, doesn't match anybody. But they've actually gone through and they've got a whole series now of I think about 85 different colors that are supposed to represent all of the skin tones around the world. I think that's just so cool.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Do I have anything else that I would? I would say I don't use anything fancy. I get asked all the time about like what are my favorite items, but it's really just anything. My favorite thing is just walking through a dollar store and seeing what kind of weird things they have in there that I could use to make a mark.
Yeah.
So really, like Home Depot, I would either that whole entity I would hate for that to go because yeah,
Yeah.
I get some of my stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit like that too. Like I know some artists that are really they're really committed to a certain brand. Like they love the Cortex or Gold, and I find that I like different colors in different places. Is this too loud? Can you hear this weed whacker?
Yeah, it's a bit loud.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can move. Okay.
I didn't know what that noise was.
Oh, hang on a second. This is even more ridiculous than doing it from my hospital bed. Hang on. I'm moving over here. Okay, we're gonna do a moving one. So anyway, what I want to talk about is one of the things I just love about you is that you're so bold. Like you take risks, and I think a lot of times artists will take risks with with their art and trying new products. But I think you take even bigger risks, and I feel like we're a bit simpatico that way, where you kind of go, "Hey, that'd be a cool thing to do," and it's only afterwards you realize, "How am I going to deliver that?"
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now I'm sitting on some. I think it's an oil tank thing. I don't know what it is.
It's funny. It's funny in my personal life. I'm a chicken shit.
Really?
Oh yeah. Ask Chris Mazur about how I travel in a car. It's not if I'm not driving. If I'm driving,
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. So I'm not a risk taker in things that I know I could die in, like plane riding or motorcycles or yet I love horseback riding, but I could die at any moment. But in my business is for sure I try and take risks and I if you follow any entrepreneurs, I can't think of any at the moment, but they're all risk takers and I think you can't move forward in life without risk in your business.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Now he's moving to my area. Moving over here again. I'm sorry. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur as well, so I really get that.
Of
It's
all
just
days
funny.
for them to be doing a weed whacking.
I know, and he's very, very committed to it too. That's the thing, right? Like, it's like I'm pretty sure that piece of grass has been weed whacked now about 7 times. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying. So I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur as well, and even when I gave up my marketing firm, and everyone around me said, "Oh, that's great. You'll have so much more time to do all these things." And what's the first thing I do? Well, I just start a new business, and started Creative Adventures. And I think, kind of like you, I also sort of figure, well, I'm just going to start it. One of the ways I started, I commit to something like this, where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. I commit to it. And then you kind of are committed to actually following through, but then having to try and figure out on the fly how you're going to produce it.
Right.
And it sounds like that's a little bit what you did recently with your new art classes you're doing, which sounds super cool.
I get asked, probably the last year has been more than anything, asked if I do art class.
Grass. I'm sorry.
This is priceless. I feel like we're at the Ottawa show again, just having a
I know.
yeah, so I thought, why not just, this seems to be a good time, right? I mean, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be vacationing. Like, I live for my vacations because if I'm not in the Bahamas, I am working 7 days a week. And so I live for those weeks where I'm away. So I'm again going, this isn't my norm. Let's again try and do something different. And I always look for signs. And I recently had a woman from North Bay who messaged me and asked whether I would do some online teaching or mentoring for her. And as we talked a little bit, there was some really cool similarities between her and I that I thought, if this isn't a hammer hitting me on the head right now saying, wake up, it's time to try this. So I did, I asked her to do a little one-on-one, just her and I, to see how I would feel and how she would feel and if she thought it was beneficial. And she enjoyed it. She had a great time. I had a great time. And I thought, okay, why not? Let's move forward. And so I still have some planning to do. And the whole logistics of, I'm not really that techie. So having two cameras and operating and then having to switch, I don't know. And I just thought, I'm usually one of those people that, I'm going to try something new. So I'll go out and buy all the equipment. And so I'm trying not to do that anymore just because, it's a bit ridiculous, but I did buy myself, a Yeti.
I got one of those too.
I'm excited about my Yeti. I don't know what else I'm going to do with it, but
they're a bit intimidating though, don't you find? Like, I don't, mine's like, it's like this big, it looks very professional, and I always feel like a bit of a scamster when I use it.
I know, and I don't know how I'm supposed to set it up. Like, if I'm going to be walking around, I don't know. So I'll figure that out. As soon as that comes today, then I'll be able to figure out my setup, and everybody will have to bear with it only being one camera. So, because I want to make a recording of it, and I don't know how to record with two cameras, so I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to the podcast Art Juice the other day, and I think they're on their 90th episode or something, and they talked about, at the beginning, they look back and they're like, oh, we're so embarrassed because it's so primitive. But I mean, that's how you start, right? And I think part of it is you have to figure out, is it something you really want to do for a long period of time, or is it something that's kind of COVID related, and once you get back to your normal life, that you don't want to do? So I think it's good to kind of invest a little bit and learn a little bit of the way, and then it becomes more sophisticated as you do it more.
Yeah, exactly. Just like when I look back on my work from 2008, I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? But
yeah,
I had someone a long time ago that told me, and I stick with that now because he said, if you were to look back on your work from a decade ago and say that was the best work I've ever made, then you shouldn't be an artist.
Yeah.
You always have to keep moving forward and evolving and getting better at your craft. So that made me feel so much better and not so mortified about all those pieces of art that are out there in the world. But one of the things I think is actually really cool about your work, though, is that for sure your style has changed, and you actually change what you're doing fairly regularly, but it still has a really consistent Lori Mirabelli feel. Like, it feels like your work. And so I don't know if there's something about the mark making or the colors or something that, even if I haven't seen your newest iteration of what you're working on, I can usually tell, like when I go to PI Gallery and you look at the work, you're like, oh, that must be a Lori. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's a curse and a blessing. I have no intentions on keeping or having my body of work evolve so quickly. That's not my intention. Unfortunately, it's a side effect of me and what I have inside of me. And so I just can't do it. It's not that I don't know. It's limited attention span, I think, and this rebellion. I've always had a rebellious side. I do it in a very passive kind of way, I think, unless you really push my buttons. So, you know, I know that, you know, we're supposed to stay in this wheelhouse of this body of work, and I just can't do it. I have to keep exploring and trying something new. And then, so what I always try and do so that you can, as you say, Kate, still recognize it as to be a Mirabelli, is I try and take something from the old body of work and carry it over to the new body of work. And so
Yeah.
if you followed my work along the way, you should be able to see that it's still me, and that some of my signature things are in there, like line work and mark making, and I try and carry a consistent theme with the mark making into each piece, and then that just becomes a little bit of a quest in itself for me, which keeps my attention, is how do I develop a new body of work but still implement the old and make it mesh with the new. And so that part is thrilling for me, and it keeps me it challenges me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think I look as well back at my older work too. And a lot of people, if you look at a photograph of it, it looks quite similar. But when you get closer, I can see this. The mark making has become much more sophisticated, even though the composition still looks quite similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it becomes a bit more interesting. You push it a little bit more, but it still retains that. Like for me, you know, most people can look at my work and say, yeah, that's a Kate Taylor. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I've done something so different, and everyone else looks at it and it's like, not that different. Like it still looks like you.
But that's a good thing. That's what we want. And I always say, you know, really it's your arm is so trained to have these motions that I always say muscle memory, right? So no matter what I'm doing or what colors I'm working with, you're always going to see a consistent mark that is unique to me, because it's like my signature, right? Like nobody can really copy my own writing. It's mine.
Yeah. And I always feel too, I don't want to have to try and in a non-authentic way do something completely different to sort of prove that I can, you know. And sometimes I fool around and I'll paint with my right hand instead of my left hand. I'm left-handed, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually also one of the reasons that I love doing commissions, because I find they often will push me into a different direction, because, you know, you have one that's like, well, I really love your work, but you know, I want black, which actually started this black series I've got, and I'm kind of like, oh, I don't really usually work with black, because usually my thing is about color, but it's a really cool way of trying to create something that still feels authentic and you still enjoy working through, that the client loves, and it kind of delivers on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I don't know. I think making art still needs to have the foundation of being fun and creative and interesting.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that ourselves as artists, then it just becomes work. And I don't ever want this to become work. And sometimes there has been moments for me where, you know, the art flow, the inspiration, sometimes I pick up a pencil or a paintbrush and I feel like I'm right back in kindergarten, and I never painted before in my life, and not having, you know, dialogues with other artists about these things, because we don't want to seem like we're failures. I was really taking it to heart. So about my friend can attest to this, about every 6 months I would go through the process of, that's it, I'm done. Like, it's over. My career's over. I can't do this anymore. I'm not a painter. I've just been faking my way, and somehow I ended up here in downtown Toronto. And so now I've realized that I call it like my bucket. You know, we always have these buckets of emotions, and for me, it's that creativity that it gets. Eventually the bucket rises and then it just overflows, and when it overflows it eventually empties. And so at that time I have to stop. I have to just do something else, go for a walk, find something interesting, read about somebody else's artwork, and then eventually that, you know, that creativity starts to fill the bucket again, and then I'm ready to go explosive on a painting. And that's why a lot of people say, oh my goodness, like you paint so much. Well, I do when I do, but then I don't when I don't.
Yeah.
And so that's part
I
of the process.
totally hear you. It's funny because, it's one of the reasons that Lisa and I started this COVID collaboration, right? So coming back and forth, and we thought, originally I thought, that would be just something really fun to do, and you won't have to be constrained with doing what you normally do. And it was so stressful because in my mind, I kind of thought, well, I think what I'd like to do is like a Helen Lucas, huge, really big florals, like lots of bright colors, and that's where I kind of started off years ago, which I really liked. And I couldn't quite figure out how to do something that didn't look totally amateurish with a palette knife. So in my head, I couldn't quite execute it. So then, I was in hospital for a week. So I'm like, I've got a week of sitting in bed. So I'm going to draw, and I'm going to draw flowers. And I'm like, I can't draw. I'm like useless. I can't draw. I did exactly the same thing you're going through. But I think ultimately, like Julia Beanstra says too, I think what ultimately makes us artists is that you get to that point, and I'm totally there now, where I'm just itching to get back in the studio and get my fingers dirty and
Yeah.
just kind of execute on something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like everything, it's a job. It's an amazing, incredible job. And I agree with you. You have to do it with joy. But there's always times when you just get exhausted
Yeah.
and you're kind of just ready to be finished.
Yeah. So, and now I've realized that when I'm exhausted, it just means take a break. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah. That's why it's important to have a good network of other artists that can
So
identify.
true. It's so
You can
true.
kind of say that, and they're like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
We know what you're going through.
I don't talk about my art business with my friends. I really don't. Not it's very it's such an obscure profession that I just don't get. They don't have an understanding of what it takes to do this kind of stuff, and so I just I paint as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
That's
I agree, and I think one of the challenges is because I run into this too. It's like, you're so lucky you're creative. You're so lucky you're an artist, as if there's no work involved in building the craft and the expertise and the skill to do that. And like you were saying, you paint a lot. I don't paint as much as I would like to, but that's just my own issue right now. But it kind of does take that 10,000 hours.
yeah.
And yes, I was born creative of a creative family. That certainly helps to get that push at the beginning, but it's really been the thousands and thousands of hours of practice and exploring and testing that allows us to be consistent professional artists and good at our craft.
Yeah, and then there's the whole marketing back end business side of the art world,
Yeah.
which is grueling and exhaustive because if you're not marketing yourself, you're not moving your art. I just like
Yeah.
I would love to know if somebody would do the stats on what the percentage is of an artist that has done no marketing, has no PR work, and then is still able to go viral or sell a massive amount of work. It's you constantly have to be working both, and
I think it's slim. Like I know artists that, well, Lynette actually, who I'm trying to get on this talking to artists, she has a huge Instagram following. And I remember when I first met her when we were in China, I'm like, okay, so how do you do it? What are the tricks, right?
Yeah.
And basically, it was a shitload of work. That's the trick, right? She follows up. She spends a lot of time thinking about what she's messaging. She reaches out to everybody individually. She builds really authentic relationships online. That's time consuming. You
Very
can't really
time-consuming.
outsource that either.
No, you can't. Otherwise, it just becomes a generic statement, and it's not authentic. But yeah, it's work. I get
Yeah.
asked that a lot too. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, I have no life. That is my consistent saying to everybody is I have no life. All I do is work. And that's why I'm still so angry. Thank you, pandemic. I should be in the Bahamas right now, not
Yeah.
working.
I know, I should be doing the Toronto Outdoor. I was so excited to get into that show. I'm like, I can't believe myself, all my friends are in that show this year and it's online, which will be great, but not the same as meeting people and stuff. But yeah, someone else just kind of said marketing first, art second, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true.
I think they have to be in tandem. And I think I'm one of these people too. Like I actually really enjoy the intellectual challenge of kind of going from it being in a creative space to being in more of an intellectual analytical space to try and figure out some of those business issues and some of the marketing issues. And so that's why I actually don't mind the marketing. Through the Artist Network board too, I get a lot of those challenges. I guess, we're always trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm just keeping an eye on time. We're good. So I'd like you to talk more about your classes actually, because I really think the way you set those up is really quite innovative, and I haven't heard of anybody doing this tandem participation and viewing
Well, fingers
piece.
crossed that it works.
It will work.
I wanted it to be authentic, and I need to also get something out of something. I know that's a selfish thing, but I think artists,
No.
you have to have some selfishness, because the work that you're creating is done usually in isolation. So there is a selfishness to us in that. And so I thought if I had a smaller class with only 5 people online, that I would be able to give them much more one-on-one attention and have dialogue with each other as we were creating work together. And they would have the opportunity to ask me questions and dialogue, and then I would give them tutorials or whatever that we're going to work on for that day. But and so they got charged a premium, or they had the option to choose that ticket, that one of 5
Personal one-on-one contact.
And it was a higher price. And then I thought I would open it up and sell registration at half the price, and they would only be allowed to view us having a dialogue, which I still think is just like this, right? Even though nobody else is participating, we're still going to be learning something from it and gaining something from it. And so they can be off camera on their own, working on their art, listening to us, and it's going to be recorded so that I can send it out to everybody who signed up, so that they can focus on building their art and having the listening in on the conversation, and then be able to play it back. Because sometimes I'm not a really good learner, so I need to have all of these extra elements of, the visual, auditory, tactile. And so I'm always thinking of that when I'm doing anything as a learning modality, I guess. And so I think, am I forgetting anything? Because my brain just went fried.
No, but I think you've touched on a couple of really important points I wanted to talk to as well. I think that first of all, I think it is really important to do these kinds of things that take you out of your studio to ensure that you're getting something out of it. And that's, for me, that's why this Talking to Artists I started, because I was finding I'm lonely. And it's one thing to have a phone call. It's another thing just to kind of shoot the shit with somebody who you can learn from, and it becomes a really invigorating conversation.
Yeah.
And in a second way, when I gave up my marketing firm, all of a sudden again, I'm an extrovert and I'm spending all my time in the studio. And for me, that's not good for me. And so, working with Angela Lane, and we started Creative Adventures, because that was a partnership between, I needed something social to do.
Yeah.
Going to all these art shows and hearing all these people say, I'm not creative, I can't draw. And it's like, you're creative. You just need help tapping into it, right? So for me, I didn't want to do the art lessons because I'm a crappy teacher, but also I was kind of nervous about the structure of having to be kind of keep on a timeline in a way that I like a looser schedule. And so the Creative Adventures were nice because they were kind of like 3 hours, let's drink mimosas, let's have some fun. You'll learn some skills, and you'll learn the ability to create something you're going to be really proud of, and that will be hopefully an impetus for you to be able to kind of then continue and take classes like yours, right? So for me, I feel like I'm a conduit to other artists who want to do more rigorous kind of lessons and stuff.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm not by the book at all, Kate, in anything I ever do. So people, if you signed up thinking it's going to be structured, it will not. I have and it really depends on me, right, too? Like, I don't know what mood I'm going to wake up in that morning. So I'll have some ideas of the basic foundations of what I think and go through as I'm building a painting. And I'll break that down into segments, and those are the topics that I'll try and tackle. But it can't be. Otherwise, I just won't do it. That's just not who I am.
Well, and I think the other thing too is it will evolve. Like, I know when I first did one of the creative adventures I did was creating one of my little treasures, which, I thought that I was really thinking it through very carefully in terms of how to structure it and how to help people. And then I realized, especially because I'm working with non-artists, so they don't have even a lot of the foundation that artists would already have. But I found that I had to actually really modify the way I spoke, the words that I used, the language I used, and kind of just allowing people a lot of time just to play and encourage that play.
Yeah.
So it took longer than I thought. So every time I did it, you learn a little bit more. It becomes a little bit more sophisticated and a bit easier for people to be successful.
Yeah, and I'm taking that into consideration too, that not everybody is going to be a full-time artist or a professional artist and just want to learn from me or whatever. So thankfully, a lot of people who have signed up have let me know that, I don't have any experience. Is it still okay if I sign up? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You'll be in good company. But I took to relate to that, I guess, I took horseback riding lessons a couple of years ago down here in the city. And I had a lovely trainer. It was one-on-one, but she would always use the horse lingo and the horse talk, and I'd be like, I don't know what that means. Just
I feel stupid.
Like, use words that I understand. So I'm coming from that angle when I'm going to be teaching. I'm not going to be using the high-end art lingo that, sometimes I still have to go, what does that mean? So I'll maybe reference those terms, but do more of a descriptive, explaining it, and always having in the back of my mind that this may be the first time somebody picked up a paintbrush. So. Yeah,
well, it's kind of marketing 101, right? Don't make your customers look stupid or feel stupid. Lane Verbeek has just come on board. I'm hoping to try and convince him to do a Talking to Artists, because he did some quite incredible pivoting doing these pressed glass classes, and he's saying that teaching almost makes me feel selfish. I learn so much more from my students, and I think that's a really cool statement too.
Yeah.
So when are your classes going to be? They're starting when?
Oh, I forgot that part.
This is your opportunity to do some marketing, Laurie.
I am not good at plugging myself when I am not. I'm the one that never ever has a business card ever on me. I'm horrible at that, but online I'm great. When did they start? It starts this July, Sunday, July 5th, and it'll run for the 4 Sundays in July, and 11 till 1 p.m.
Oh, cool. And are you still accepting students?
I am, yeah. And that was the other thing I forgot to say, is that I'm going to, even though our class runs from 11 till 1, I'm going to stay on a little bit after that time period. And so the people that bought the lower end ticket, who didn't have an opportunity to be on camera at that point, can go onto camera and audio, and then we can have a bit of a dialogue. And, I just want to make sure that everybody is happy and getting something from the class. And, recognizing too that this pandemic has impacted people's income. I wanted to make sure that I had some different price points for everybody.
Oh, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. And so are your link is available through your Instagram?
It's
DM?
It's not in my Instagram. Sometimes I have it in my story, but definitely on my website under workshops.
Website.
Yeah, and I went through Eventbrite, so nice, easy platform. No plug to Eventbrite, but
yeah. Okay, well, that's amazing. I just want to make sure we stay under the time limit so that we can make sure that it gets recorded and stuff.
For sure.
Anything else you wanted to plug? Are you doing Toronto Outdoor this year?
I am, yeah. It just opens today at noon.
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I don't know about you, but I haven't done my marketing yet, so that's on my list of things to do. Well, I found coming right off Riverdale, the Riverdale one just closed, and then going on to Toronto Outdoor, but that's kind of a whole interesting thing.
For sure. That's the hard part with all of these shows being online, is that, I'm more focused working on my own site that is $365 a year. So to take away from that and to do, it was just, I just found it, hats off to everybody who was able to do that 180 and come up with these new plans for all of us artists. But it was a lot of extra work for sure for all of us.
Yeah. Well, and even basic stuff like shipping all of a sudden becomes hugely critical and important. Whereas before it's kind of like, well, figure it out on the fly or whatever. But the other thing I found too is actually being able to really track your inventory. Like, you obviously don't want the same piece on multiple art show sites for sale, right? Like, so it's kind of, have to really be careful about that too.
Yeah. And that's why, that was the only reason why I opted into the Toronto Outdoor Show, is it gave me the option to upload the link to my own website. And so I took that. That was the only one I'm doing online.
Yeah, so I'm doing for my little treasures. I'm doing that as well, because I just try and re-upload 50 little pieces just doesn't make sense, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was delightful to talk to you, and hopefully we'll be able to have our next glass of wine, talk over a glass of wine or something, or an outdoor art show or something.
Hopefully.
But that'll be like next summer now, I guess.
I know.
Well, maybe Art Walk Square. Art Walk in the Square is still potentially could go forward as a live show because of the fact it's outdoors and we have lots of space. So that would be that could be kind of cool.
That's a potential too. And the only other show
Fingers crossed.
how much time? Cabbage Town
No.
is the other show that I'm
Yes.
supposed to do in September. So the info is on my website for that. And
Yeah.
fingers crossed, that'll be my only outdoor show.
Yeah, I mean, my only one would potentially, be Art Walk Square.
Yeah.
So, because San Diego was canceled, of course, so not that I could probably get there anyway, but I do love traveling to San Diego, so that was
You do.
disappointing.
One day, Kate. One day I'll be there with
That's
you.
right. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate.
I'm gonna cancel you off, and I'm just gonna do a couple little blurbs here. Oops. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me and for also bearing with all of my technical challenges. I swear at some point I will get my shit together and it will actually be professional. You can hear me. I'm not going to have grass cutting, hospital beds, upside down videos. We'll work through that. So next week we've got Marjolaine Vanderhart, who goes by Memory Art Girl. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how her, her kind of doing a lot more thinking in terms of what the Great Pause or COVID has created, but also Black Lives Matter and how that's had an effect on her work. Marjolaine has also done a lot of amazing education sessions on digital art. So how to, well, actually not digital art, on how to sell your art digitally. So how to build your website, how to use Facebook ads and stuff. And she's actually just started a new business as well, where she's actually going to sell those properties. So I think you'll be interested in that. And the week after that is Jenny Lynn James, who I don't know where she has time to paint. She seems to be, she's a singer, she writes books, she's got her fingers in everything. So I think you'll love her chat as well. So thank you so much for joining me. For sure, give me any feedback in terms of if there's artists you'd like to hear from, anything else that you think would be interesting, any comments to make it better other than the average don't have a weed whacker in the background of your video would be really great. And thank you so much for spending your Thursday mornings with me. Hope to see you next Thursday. Bye.